Well, good afternoon, buenos dias, well, buenas tardes. First edition of Luke's Adventures in Nicaragua. I am on day 2 of my visit. This will be the first of several postings to the YouTube channel in the future. I have some videos to add. Unfortunately, a small dilemma. My main drive with all my files is currently at aduana, known as customs in the States, and I'll be having to make several visits over there in the next few days to try to get a Korg keyboard synthesizer I brought with me on the plane. But I'll get back to that in the future. For those that don't know me, name is Luke Graham. I lived in Florida for most of 40 years, born in Illinois, served in a bunch of governmental agencies, private business, public business, nobody's business, and got a bunch of people that have a lot of questions about what it means to live in Nicaragua, because obviously there's not a lot of valid information that comes to us in the States unless you've been here, unless you've lived it, unless you've experienced it. We don't always see the most accurate information posted online, and when looking for information online about being here, there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of lack of information. The country simply doesn't post every little detail of their life on the internet. They don't have a need for it. They're also not actively going out of their way to bring expats here. That's been the job of their neighbor to the south, Costa Rica. So I am currently staying in Managua, which is the capital of Nicaragua. I'll be here for 4 weeks, staying at Hotel Malcontent, a very common place for expats to stay. I'll be posting some pictures of the room. I'm in it right now. Small, simple, 1-bedroom, private bath, nothing elaborate, costing me a whopping $24 US per day, and there's a free breakfast included. Again, photos of the room and breakfast will be posted soon. Went and started doing my due diligence today. I went to the local phone company, Claro. There are 2 primary companies, Claro and Tigo. It's Coke or Pepsi. It's a matter of personal preference. The prices are very similar. The quality of service historically has been very similar. There's been some relatively good referrals lately for Claro, who is already affiliated with T-Mobile, who I have from the States. So anybody wondering about which brand of phone service they should have in the States if they plan on doing any travels, it would definitely be T-Mobile. Within the States, you still got your perks of the Netflix and Apple TV, which I'll be able to utilize here. However, T-Mobile doesn't have true roaming. Their service gets piggybacked on Claro for the phone internet service, but you lose a lot of your data speed. So it behooves you, once you move here, or even if you're just going to visit, to get an eSIM from Claro so you can utilize their internet speed, which is far faster than what T-Mobile becomes once you leave the States. So I went today and I got my additional eSIM, which gives you an additional phone number. You don't make phone calls from that. You use this phone number and this account all for data, because one of the other perks is Claro does not charge against your data package to use all the social media pages. Once you leave the United States, WhatsApp is where it's at. Everybody and their brother uses WhatsApp. If you're not familiar with it, it's a product owned by Meta, who's the owner of Facebook. It does not share the same algorithms as Facebook. It doesn't get as much spam or doo-doo on it. But people use it for voice calls, voicemail, video calls, text messaging, and chat groups. So again, you utilize these as your only sources of communication, and none of that goes against your data plan. Your data plan then gets to be used for surfing the internet, but all of your communication going through WhatsApp is not going to cost you a penny. Getting to what did I pay for the eSIM and its service, most people will do a prepay here. So it's 15 days of prepaid service, and they did not charge me for the eSIM, adding the virtual eSIM to the phone. I paid 200 Cordoba, which is less than $6 US. So my phone bill add-on for data plan here will run me approximately about $5.85 US every 15 days. If I run over, you can pretty much recharge your phone at any gas station, Quick Mart. There's 1,001 locations. People use these services to pay bills and others. So no concern about running out of data and needing to buy more. The competitor Tigo does it very effectively from their app, and from what I understand, Claro, you can do it from their website, but not from an app per se if you don't want to go in person. So I've got that installed today, utilizing that data plan right now. Just turned on the new MacBook Pro, was getting ready to put some of this over on file. The other thing I did today was I confirmed the information I need to get my stuff out of quote-unquote hock. So when you travel, the customs office, known as Aduana, that's what it's called here, Aduana will allow you for personal use to bring in, without additional tariff tax, one laptop, one phone, one camera. You can bring a tablet. You can bring a musical instrument. So I had a Korg synthesizer I bought a year ago, put it in a nice Pelican case for transit. Had to pay $100 for it to be on the plane for oversized luggage. And when I went through Aduana, they decided they were going to hold on to the keyboard, and I need to return to pay a tax to have it in country. So what went right and what went wrong with that? It is a relatively new piece of electronics. They weren't familiar with what it was. It's got a lot of buttons and switches on it, and it was in really, really good shape. So it looks like a high-end piece of electronics. It looks like something that should be taxed. Backing that up a little bit. So when I flew, I picked Avianca. We were uncertain if Spirit was going to be having flights at that time when I purchased this ticket about 8 months ago. And coincidentally, Spirit has now discontinued future flights to Managua. Those flights will get picked up by Avianca. However, currently they show them going through El Salvador and Colombia before getting to Nicaragua and the reverse. So it's a very long, lengthy, expensive haul through them at the moment. It's assumed that in the future, they'll just have the direct flights going from Lauderdale that Spirit used to have and will come down. I paid approximately $8.50 for a round-trip ticket. Now, I had all intentions on staying here. The travel flight companies would not allow you to buy a one-way ticket out of country without residency or citizenship. It used to be an inside deal to get you to pay more money, and now it's a policy by the airlines. So because I was staying as long as I am, I had to get a round-trip ticket. Now, the visa, and it's not truly the visa, it's a tourist stamp, is good for a total of 90 days and eligible for 3 additional 30-day extensions. I paid $10 for my first 90 days here, understanding that at the end of that 90 days, I'll have to go down to a customs office, immigration office, and pay a $25 fee for a 30-day extension, or find a driver to take me down to the Costa Rican border and go over the border and come back. That resets the 90-day clock versus paying the $25 30-day extension. I'm booked for 4.5 months, so I'll be doing one full 30-day extension, and then I'll be paying for a second 30-day extension, but I'll be leaving prior to the end of that, going back to the States on Juneteenth. The hope is, as a retired pensionado, that I will be able to get my residency established fairly quickly. I exceed the financial income requirements. I've got the paperwork that could be established in the States done. What I need to do here before I leave Managua at the end of the month, within a month, I need to go and get an Interpol background check for approximately $30 to show that I'm not a wanted criminal internationally. I did the FBI background check in the States just to see how it worked, knowing it was not going to satisfy the needs of Nicaragua, but I wanted to see how effective it works. For those who need to do an FBI background check in the States for other reasons and not for getting here, because the date stamp on that's only good for 90 days. You pay online from the FBI's website. I believe it was $18 that I paid. You schedule an appointment to go to a post office to do live scans of the fingerprints. That was about $50. The beauty of that is, once you do the live scan and you show the post office the information, you get a near instant confirmation of whether or not there is a record on you by the FBI, and you get an email of the report. I will say, of the trials and errors I've had with the post office in the last year, the most successful, efficient program they have is a fee-based service of live fingerprints. With that being said, so I'll be doing a $30 visit to get a background check that shows that I'm not a wanted criminal. And I need to get a health certificate that says that I don't have any infectious diseases if I want to live here long term. Now, that being said, I'll pretty much get a full physical. I need to establish a local doctor and a rheumatologist while I'm here in Managua in the first month. I have 3 weeks worth of rheumatoid medication with me. I may very well taper that out to 6 weeks because the medication that I was being provided by the VA is not provided in this country, and I'm uncertain what the alternative medication is going to be yet. So in the next week or two, I'll be seeking doctors, health care. There is a completely no-cost healthcare system in this country that's very efficient. There is the option to pay out of pocket for additional healthcare services. So much like in a similar situation, if you didn't have insurance and could be seen by an emergency room versus having insurance and have more options, here it's not insurance, it's a direct pay program, but everybody has complete access to no-cost healthcare, whether they are a citizen, a resident, or just a tourist. That being said, once I get those two things established, my 4 weeks in Managua will run up fairly quickly. I've got 2 weeks booked in Granada. I've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath near the lake with a beautiful view on the 3rd floor patio. Granada is one of the 2 oldest cities in Central America. It's just over 500 years old, along with León, Nicaragua. It is a heavy expat town. There is a lot of people from Canada, the US, and Europe living in that region, as I'm told. So I'll be running into a lot more people that speak English versus here in the capital. So I don't have any intentions of staying in Granada. However, I do need to see more of the country. My only prior visits have really been Istile, my first visit 2010 with Perdomo Cigars. Shout out to Billy Perdomo for bringing me down. I fell in love with the country 15 years ago. And when I came down at the end of the hurricanes in 2022, I stayed in Selva Negra, had a private guide for me for 10 days. Stayed with me, drove, translated, tour guide, the whole bit. Ron, which I'll be sharing Ron's information. I'll be seeing Ron in the next few days. Really made me feel welcome in a country that didn't know me and I didn't know it. So Ron's actually already my scheduled driver for my transportation between these hotels and Airbnbs. So 2 weeks in Granada is kind of like my tourist vacation. Lots of restaurants catering to expats, lots of expats in the area. Again, nice place to vacation, but I don't want to live there long term. The place I've decided to seek out as a long-term home is Matagalpa. Matagalpa is up in the mountains. It's temperate for weather. It's very consistent with its weather. I jokingly say it's like a warm Seattle. So it's pretty much a 65 to 85 degree Fahrenheit weather most of the year. The question is whether it's sunny or overcast, whether it's raining or not. Approximately 2,200 foot elevation. So the warm weather and the elevation is supposed to be good for my rheumatoid. We're going to find that out by living it. And Matagalpa is a little more, it's a little more modern city. So I'm looking at some of the amenities of a modern city versus one of the colonial cities. I'm not looking at the density of population of the capital like I have here in Managua. And there are far fewer expats in Matagalpa. It's known as the coffee capital of the country. However, its neighbor, Jinotega, actually produces more coffee, but is a smaller city, higher elevation, and it gets just a little too cold for my liking. The other part of the highlands that I had visited was Istile, which I had been to prior. Istile is a tobacco and cattle capital of the country. A little higher cost of living than the Leones and Matagalpa. Beautiful city. Like I said, I've been to it twice. Plenty for me to visit to do, but it's not my first choice of where I want to live. It does get warmer. So again, I'm looking for that elevation and more temperate weather with Matagalpa. And Matagalpa has a true coffee cafe culture embedded in it. So as I've been told so far, that Managua doesn't have the full coffee cafe culture. Leon does not have the same. However, I stopped at one cafe today. It was very reminiscent of a Starbucks or a Dunkin's in the States. The pricing was in English. The bill gets printed out in Cordoba. The music playing in the background was English, but I was the only gringo there. Side note to the gringo. Gringo is only a derogatory statement in the United States. Outside, it just means foreigner, and it doesn't have a negative connotation to it. It just means that you weren't from there. It's kind of apparent with my appearance that I'm not from here. So Caucasians are rarer to see. Bald Caucasians are rarer than that. Bearded Caucasians are rarer than that. So a bald, fat, bearded Caucasian is extremely rare, and I've gotten some looks which haven't been bad. I kind of have fun with it. Obviously, I'm going to stand out in a crowd. That's all right. But if it gives something, if somebody's laughing at my expense, it's not really being vicious. And if they're getting a laugh out of the day, hey, we all need to laugh more every day. So Matagalpa, I've actually got an Airbnb, 1 bedroom, 1 bath with hot water. That was very important to find in the mountains. Hot water, not so much a necessity here in Managua or even Granada, but it will be a necessity for me in Matagalpa. So I have that booked for 3 months, and then I'll be returning back to the States on Juneteenth. I am hoping that once I get to Matagalpa, I'll be visiting and sourcing attorneys to handle all my legal matters. So a lot of different services in the U.S. that it would be advisable to use an attorney, we don't, such as seeking out a lease or buying property. That is handled by attorneys in this country. My immigration paperwork will be handled by an attorney. Shipping my household goods will be handled by an attorney. So I have to find an attorney. What you do not want to do is try to find attorneys on the internet from the States that are here in Nicaragua, do business in Nicaragua. I've been told repeatedly from multiple sources, if they have a website and it shows up in English and they speak English, you do not want to use them. They target foreigners and either may not even be a lawful attorney, or they charge extravagant fees, or do not do the services that were supposed to be provided. So with that being said, pretty much almost the same with doctors. Very few doctors here speak English. My initial visits will be with doctors that are bilingual at the major hospitals here in the capital. But once I am established here as a resident and living in Matagalpa, I have no expectation that a local doctor will be speaking English. Which brings me to the other topic. I've been doing Babbel now in earnest for about 6 months daily. I've had it longer, couldn't focus on it, made some excuses for myself because embarrassingly I've always had a hard time picking up a second language. Wasn't getting to practice in earnest by myself in the States, so I've thrown myself into the mix and I'm forcing myself to learn the language, if not life could be a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Now, also being said, everyone that I've interacted with here has been very generous and very patient with my extremely limited Spanish. I make the point, and I just made it today on a discussion board on WhatsApp, the people of Nicaragua who do not speak English have been far more patient with my limited Spanish than if I was a visitor from somewhere else coming to the States with limited English skills. So I am very grateful to the hospitality and the patience of the local people. Again, one of the main primary reasons I decided on Nicaragua for my future home. People can talk about how it's inexpensive. I don't like using the word cheap. When people talk about something's a cheap place to live or it's cheap to buy that, cheap has a negative connotation, and it's rather insulting to the people who are poor in this nation that still are still scrambling to get by. It is definitely a more affordable place if you're coming from North America. Roughly speaking, your cost of living is 1/3 here of what it would be in the States. So the cost of living, yes, is a dramatic statement, but honestly, the weather and the facilitation of my rheumatoid arthritis is a biggie. But what it all boiled down to is the people. I've visited now, again, this is my 3rd trip. And when I came down 2 years ago, I was pretty certain that I wanted to live here, but I didn't want to rose tint my world and glaze over my memories and not have a good, accurate picture of where I thought I wanted to live. So while in tourist mode, I kept on looking behind the curtain. And ultimately what I saw was the poorest people of the Western Hemisphere were the happiest people I've met. So wealth does not equate happiness, because people here who make less than $200 a month US in wages, and that's a 48-hour, 6-day work week, and they work 13 months of the year. It's 28-day months, not 30, 31, sometimes 28-day months. They work a lunar month. The folks here work 48-hour work weeks every week, and they average $50 US a week in wages. With that being said, they have no cost health care, which